Hey there, welcome back to our conversations with Ross Cook. Today, we're going to talk about values and what that even means. Because in my work with Ross, a very dear mentor of mine, he has taught me so much about how to find my own values and what I value in life, because that really drives the decisions we make and how we really navigate life. And I'm gonna have to admit to you guys, like when people I'd hear the word values and I'm like, oh yeah, that's just like what I think is good. Or yeah, that's just like what I believe, but I didn't go deeper than that until working with Ross. And now I'm like, whoa, there's like so much behind a value that I had no idea. So, you guys, I'm going to let Ross take this over and start this conversation about values and like, why do we even need to know that?
Well, I think it thanks, and I appreciate and honor your humility there. You're a wonderful student and a brilliant seer, and values are a causal layer of energy in our life, and they either cause good things or bad things, whatever the value itself actually is. Is it a fear-based value or is it a congruent flowing value? And we can give you an example in just a second. I think it's vitally important that you realize that we often learn these things wrong. And we just learn them by what's going around us, and your subconscious mind encodes them, and then it puts them in gigantic file cabinets, and then we're an associative learner, and because we learn associatively, we get a word or a thought or more often a feeling over here, and it opens that file cabinet, and you get whatever has the greatest emotion in the front of that file cabinet, because it's not just a 0101 thought like your conscious mind works. It's an emotional subconscious mind,
Yeah.
encoding, right? Our encodes encode bigger than does a thought. Okay.
So, the value, I'm like, oh, that's the stuff that I really like. Well, I don't know what I like. I know what
There
I
you go.
don't like and what I don't want. I could tell
Mhm.
you a lot of that,
If we
but
were to go
like,
into a company, Melissa, and ask, people their values, they would be able to tell us what their values are not, what they do not like, because the 6 o'clock news and everything else and the Velcro of fear and limit, in our subconscious mind and how big it gets, they become big determinants of what we put energy onto. Let's use an example. If I were to have a cup here in my hand, and this is my invisible cup, and it's a cup of love. This is my value love. This is everything about, and people will say, well, I'm going to start a new company and I'm gonna just do everything through love. It's gonna be the best. I'm gonna do that. I've gone the hard road a lot, and I've gone through that, and I've just decided love is the answer, and I'm gonna use this value of love over here. And no matter what happens, everything's got to check in and come through the filter of love. Ready, go. Well, the problem is we've seen old Yeller. That's my generation, not yours probably, but we've had our heart broken. We've been in love. We've been out of love. We've held our parents' hands as they die. I mean, we've been in tough love situations that have been encoded at trillions and trillions of electrical events a second, and or even more vibrations, 542 trillion vibrations a second, that vibrate about that love concept. And we've been encoding it for as long as we've been on this planet. And so they're vast programs that are determining essentially what we're attracting. So if I have a love and I want it to be real cleansed and wonderful, I got to realize that about maybe 40% of that cup of love is limit and hurt,
yeah,
and pain. And so when I go and energize that cup of love, unconditional love, here it comes. Even the word unconditional brings conditions involved. I like
right.
the word abiding, because abiding is infinite and consistent and here for a long time. So I pour into that energy to start this love situation. And what do I get? I get a behavioral pattern where, stop, darling, come here. That I'll be in love for a little while, and then the limits will get energized and they'll come in. And quite frankly, that's where our behavioral patterns come from. So what
Yes.
we need to do is have a tool through inner journeying to cleanse the limits and the fears and the pain that we've experienced in love out of love, capture that energy. And if we want to continue in love or clarity or peace or kindness, we then put that energy into those things that support love.
Yes.
And
And I
that's how
love
you
this
build your
example.
values.
I love this example of love because I think everybody I know would say, yes, they want to lead with love. Like, yes, I want to serve and I want to do my thing and I want to be myself through that like infinite love. But that's not always happening because of the past experiences
Yeah.
and like the things that are happening in our subconscious mind. So a value, I would have never, you guys, this is kind of like embarrassing sometimes to say, but like it's the truth. Like I would have before meeting Ross, I probably wouldn't like say with my words, um, my value is love. Like I might have said like I want to lead with love. Like yes, I've always felt that in my heart. I want to teach people and help people how to do that. And the love doesn't just mean to me like, oh, be really nice to people and like rainbows and butterflies. It's not that kind of love that we're referring to. It's like, the abiding love, like Ross just said, like that love and the mission of who you are and what you're here to do and who you're to serve. But like I wouldn't have articulated it in the sense of a value, but now that I can, and now that I've learned to, it's like my whole like awareness of what that even means, how to cleanse it so that I can um lead with love has just like totally opened up. Now, I keep having this thought of another one because a lot of people will say when you ask them like what's your why? Like why are you doing your thing? Like why do you want to have more money or why do you want to do this? And most of the times people will say cuz for my family, for my kids.
Mhm.
I really want them to have um um like just have what they need or have like these great experiences because they may or may not have had them or they want to leave a legacy for them or whatever. But then like they're working all the time, stressed out, house is chaotic, and like it's like you say it's for your family and you want to lead with love, but um it doesn't seem like it's happening. So like the knowing and desire is almost like disconnected from what's really happening.
Well,
Would
our,
it be
our
it's
habits are often very disconnected. And where did we learn our habits? You know, we, by the time we were 17 months old, 2 years old, some will say 7 years old. I think we're still encoding deeply until we hit logic, and then logic kind of we encode there. I think we encode our entire life, but the majority of our life is encoded by the time we're about two.
mm,
And that means the power of people around you, your mom, your dad, they're kind of poured into a little cauldron, and that's, you come in with a certain energy, and that's where you start unloading. I'm the second child, I'm the this, I'm the that, and you start piling up those things, and those things are influence in everything you just mentioned. you know i
mhm,
I someday I'll, our parents generations, grandparents generations, great grandparents generations could put up with about anything, because they were going to be rewarded with a big pension, or they were going to be rewarded in heaven later. And they would put up with about anything, and they, because of that, somewhat feared change, and things
yeah,
stayed somewhat, that was a value base, that was a whole value based understanding of the world. You've gone through this with me, and when we begin having these conversations of kind of disconnects, I think
yeah,
it's this, but it's that. I mean, we don't want just the love that lives in love and abandonment,
right,
love and hate. We want to go through the love deeper and deeper until we are led by our feelings and our wholeness into a new kind of love, and be able to hold that space for a while. Then we'll cycle back, and then we'll hold it longer and longer and longer. It's vitally important that we drill down through, and you've done this exercise. Well, if I were to get that money, or if I were to be home another 8 hours, what would that give me? And then whatever you answer, well, there'd be elephants in my backyard. I'd say, well, what would that give you? And what would that give you? And what would that give you? And we just drill down through, drill down through, drill down through
Right.
until we get to your baseline
So
as much as well as you know it today. And then we empower that.
so get this, I don't know, this is just going to mind. Like the thought of like being home more. I remember thinking, because you guys, I was like working all the time, and then I started kind of chipping away. Like then I was part-time, and now I left my clinic about a year ago and to homeschool my kids, and now I'm home all the time. So that brings up a whole other thing, because there was a time where I thought if I'm home more, that means I have to clean more. Oh God, like if I'm home more, I have to like, you know, listen to more like kids fighting with each other. Like, oh my gosh. Like, there's all these like that started coming, but then the other part of me was like, yes, I want to be home more with my family. And so see the disconnect. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I really want it, but like then my mind like started thinking like, oh, all these things that I don't want to happen.
We say if you went out and that's putting your foot on the gas and the brake at the same time.
Yes.
And if you were to go out and do that to your car would be dead by noon. We're stunningly resilient. I mean, that we can put ourselves through that in cycle after cycle, and then we do it 3 years later again. And it's amazing how resilient we are. And quite frankly, a lot of illnesses that people come to me with and say, oh, I have this illness and I've been diagnosed with it. It's because of those conflicts. When you get those conflicts and those straight loggerhead challenges at a subconscious mind where it can't get at ease and it's struggle bussing all the time, conflicted, angry, whatever it is. When you release those, now you have captured a bunch of energy that you can invest into anything you want. In those cases, we invest it into teaching the cells that they learned the wrong lesson, and now they can learn a new lesson and they get well.
Yes.
It's critically important.
And that takes me to one of our talks that we had, I believe it was last time, how we're like, how can you identify what that limiting thing is? Here's a clue, right? Like you're thinking of something you want, yes, to be home more with my family. And then the next thought is like, well, only if my kids were behaving, or only if the house wasn't such a mess all the time, or only if I didn't have to do so many dishes. Like, okay, go there. Like that's a big clue that's coming up of like what needs to shift around to be in alignment. Am I saying that right, Ross?
Yeah, that conflict is very real. The if onlys, the shoulds, the oughts, those are the parlance of change. No. Those are the parlance and don't say them. You're on the wrong layer. Einstein said you can't solve a problem at the level that it was created, right? And so, we have to go deeper into what is causational in the middle of what you just said. I mean, that's a little bit, as we talked in another video, of someone saying, well, it's kind of hell on wheels where I am, but if I get over here, it'll be just fine. Yeah, not really, because you take you and your attractions to the worlds and how you understand the world with you into that new place. You have to change those things right away, and so in your transition over, you started seeing love differently. You started seeing time differently. You started feeling differently just because, and now you brought that into the home more.
Mm-hmm.
And the weirdest thing happened is the kids weren't the way you knew them to be.
Mm-mm.
The hard work wasn't the way you thought it was, because you had changed you.
Yep. And I noticed that if I start kind of going off track, like the clouds start coming in and like it's time to like shift things, it affects the whole house. The kids are now at each other's throats. Like my husband and I are getting annoyed at each other, like just things aren't going smooth, bedtime routine is harder, like just stuff. And I'm like, what the heck? But then as soon as I fix me in the inside, or like I I journey within around those
Yeah.
things. It's fascinating how like you're like, oh wow, everything is running much more smooth.
Yeah. It's like people dance with our energy, right? You've
Mm-hmm.
walked into a room, we've all done it. We walked into a room and known something bad happened in that room, right? So our
Yeah.
subconscious mind is always searching and always paying attention to us. And if we're afraid, our subconscious mind gets very close to us. If we're open, our subconscious mind is very far away from us. It's huge. It's out there searching around. It gets thinner, right? And so in the midst of your kids are in a dance with you, you
Mm-hmm.
know, they're walking in going like, how's the house today? Oh, it's a little tough. Better batten down the hatches. It's going to be a battle with mom today. And then all of a sudden there's no time. And then you can't get the little snacks made before dinner. And I mean, before bedtime. And here it goes, right?
Yep.
When you're in flow, they come in and go, oh, wow, it's a peaceful, joyful place here today. They could not even identify that that's going on. They feel it first, right? They know that
Yep.
safety through their subconscious mind. And they go, oh, it's a nice, safe place in here today. Mom's really rolling. Man, I got nothing to add to that on the dark side. I'm just gonna be absorbed by this feeling
Yep.
and interact appropriately.
Yep. It's so true. The kids can feel all of that. I mean, this is kind of funny, but um, my kids will bring me a Palo Santo stick and a lighter. Like, Mom, we need to like clear, like make it more happy in here.
Yeah. Hey, mom, if you haven't noticed, it's a little spooky in here right now. It's like,
They really do. And then I was like, oh yeah.
oh yeah. We used to have a rule when our kids were little, and we were all learning to balance, and we've been doing this a long time, and um, we had a rule that said if someone was really out of sorts and they were acting up, we empowered the kids to say, well, you're here too. We want it doesn't only flow one direction. So if you catch us being a little bitter or a little angry or a little, uh, acting out some, well, that's a nice talk. That's a good conversation. And then one day, my lovely daughter Megan said to my wife, "Excuse me, mom, you seem to be very stressed about something. Your behavior is really, I don't know, questionable." So we had some rules. You could call anybody out on it. You had to offer to help them. And we all had to agree. I mean, in other words, you had to, when called upon, trust them. And so that's a great theory until at dinner some night when Sheila was getting the dinner and struggling and hustling around and a lot of things going on. And my blessed daughter says, excuse me, mom, you seem pretty out of balance. I'll gladly leave the table with you to help you balance that, but you
Oh my
can't stay at
gosh.
this table acting like that. You got to go. I mean,
Uh,
so some of the things we think are awesome and ideas are a little hard to swallow. But you know what? When the kids are bringing you the smudge sticks and they're telling you, what's
yep.
up, and we've got to be open enough and humble enough, and to the blessing in our house, the rule held, and
Yep.
all of us have been called out at different times, and it's a worthy thing to have open communication at a level of peace and of
Yep.
flow and of our betterment, right? Of our wellness.
Totally. Totally. That's great. One last thing that I want to hit before we wrap this conversation up about values is that since I've learned about values with you, Ross, it seems like I hear now other people talking about different values, or you can take this class on values or different things. But I kind of hesitate knowing what I know now about that
Yeah,
because it's almost like, here, let's sit down and identify your seven values when you don't really always know
right.
what exactly they are right at first, because what you call it, you have to scrub them up.
Yeah,
So it's almost like giving yourself permission to even start with one thing that really hits home to you, one thing that means a lot to you, right? And then
I think there's a
scrub
thing
that one
like
in.
that about purpose. People say, well, it's good to have a purpose-driven life. Ready, go. Where do I start? I mean,
Yeah,
we used to in business, used to probably before you were in business, uh, they would spend weeks writing mission statements. I mean, working on the words, and what they were wanting is, quite frankly, to know you weller so they could quote unquote motivate you to work healthier or more. And what had happened the first time, they had this beautiful paragraph up on the wall, and then your kid has a soccer game. Where are you going to go? You're going to
right.
go. I mean, that thing is just all of a sudden null and void. Well, the depth of the value is the thing that hard to learn, and you're
Mm,
pointing it out about classes and value. I would say it's very difficult to do consciously, because
okay.
when you think of your conscious mind, and we'll get to what we energize as who we are in this life. So in our conscious mind, which is a much smaller mind, it thinks binarily, and it thinks black, white, tall, short, thin, fat, good, bad.
Mm,
So it 0, 1. So when it thinks of one, it automatically then thinks of the other. And so if I'm sitting in a room trying to write down all the good values, my conscious mind is telling me as many of the limits as it's telling me the positives.
right.
And now you've got all that stuff kind of jumbled up, and you're walking around in it thigh deep. And now you're something. What am I supposed to do, right? I think it's vitally important if you're going to, and I'm all about hunt your values, clean them, work them, cleanse them. And you have to have a tool that will really work. You have to have a tool that will take you on an inner journey, that will talk to the subconscious mind, which is the mind that's doing the work anyway. It's the one that's bringing up all the associations and the old past patterns and, this and that.
Yeah.
Um, vitally important that we attend to that in an inner journey, in a deep level, with a tool that can heal it, because otherwise it's just chatter. It's
Yep.
just, bless your heart, if that's you got, 'cause you just got chatter and you're not going to change. And that's why change is so hard. People attempt to change through their conscious mind, which your conscious mind's job is to keep you as you are. So you have to use
Yep.
your subconscious mind to make profound change.
Right. And have a way to access that.
And it doesn't happen once. This is not the Asian or Oriental myth where we're going to hit an epiphany once in our life. You journey within your life every day, if you balance every day. The Arthurian legend is that you go in the forest where it's the darkest, and you go alone. You can have all the
Mm,
people around the table talking about stuff, but when you are going to make the change, when you're going to make the move to the godness in you, the Holy Grail cup in that case, you're going to have to go alone
yeah.
into the forest where it's the darkest, which means scariest, and you're going to have to go alone. And that is your inner journey. That's what we're talking about, is journey within yourself, because you're the only one who knows where you put the vibrations of all those other things we're talking about,
Yeah.
right?
So this is awesome. Thank you so much, Ross. And
My pleasure to be here with you. I enjoy visiting with you, and you're a magical learner, and I'm proud to be with you.
thank you so much. And I'm just so grateful for you. This tool that Ross is referring to and what he's calling balancing has really changed my life, which is why I have invited Ross to partake in some of my workshops and retreats and programs and things so that you can too learn this tool called balancing and journeying into the subconscious mind. Now, our next um, conversation, I would love to touch on journeying into the darkness,
Mhm.
because that I think can definitely, when a person hears that, oh, put those brakes on and be like, that's going to be too hard. That's going to hurt too much. I don't think that I'm ready for that.
It's too
Um,
scary.
it's too scary. So I would love to clear up kind of like, so, like the the misnomers or the misunderstandings around what that even means. So, you guys join us for our next conversation. Okay, awesome. Is it kind of funny that I'm kind of acting? Like I feel like I'm an actress with the intro.
You're just doing it consciously. That's all. It's okay. It looks.
Okay,
You look super on camera, and you're very congruent. It's great.
okay, awesome.